Well, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I just wanted to say how awesome it is that we are taking a class and writing about the American Revolution in July of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Very cool. So I did my project over the battles of Saratoga, right? And so what drew me to this was it was such a important battle for the American Revolution, helped France get into the war. And what I wanted to know was how were we able to win, or why were we able to win? All right, and so throughout the course of my research, what I've narrowed it down to was a series of factors. One was the kind of fractured or bad miscommunications of the British High Command, some of the medical issues that Burgoyne's army was facing, and then some of the very smart or timely strategic and tactical decisions of American leaders, and the morale of or discipline, resilience, whatever you want to call it, in different times they each kind of showed themselves, right, of the American troops during the battles of Saratoga, right? And so we kind of get into some of the poor decisions of the British that led to their loss, and the good decisions of the Americans, right? And so one thing I found fascinating was the level of care, medical care, that the British had was pretty high level, but their rate of sick and wounded, even before some of the major battles, was roughly almost twice that of the Americans, right? And part of that is because the Americans were generally fresh. They hadn't been on campaign as long as Burgoyne's men had been on campaign. Some of them had been, some of them had not been. But part of the reasons that they were on campaign for so long was because the Americans blocked their path, basically, and delayed their march, and they kept getting slower and slower and slower. A lot of sometimes Burgoyne is given fault of this for carrying too much baggage, but it really was the Americans that were forcing his march to Albany to be delayed, to clear the debris and the fallen trees and all, any kind of terrain damage that they could do. Also, I talk about the replacement of Gates by Philip Schuyler. So Philip Schuyler is a person I didn't know much, if anything, really about until doing this research project. And he's a really interesting character, right? He has a great kind of career as a senator after the Revolution. Does some work for like abolitionist type movements. Anyways, he's someone we should probably talk more about, I believe, but he gets replaced by Gates, right? So I talked about this wasn't an obvious decision, that this was a hard decision, but they made the right decision, as because rightly or wrongly, somewhat at least wrongly, the New Englanders didn't care for Schuyler, but they loved Gates, right? Who I don't think is later shows throughout his, throughout the war, that he's not, unbeatable, right? He's not the world's greatest general as compared to some of the other generals in the American Revolution, but he managed to draw a lot of people to him, right? So that was a good decision by the Continental Congress in that regard, right? And then we talk about a little bit of the conflict between Gates and Benedict Arnold, right? And how both of these men had ideas that were good, right, and helpful, and they really didn't get along for a certain period of time, but they were able to kind of get past their differences, and both of the men's strengths were able to shine at the Battle of Saratoga. So anyhow, it's been a very fascinating project, right? And I certainly hope you guys like it. Thank you.